Welcome back, my formula-shattering anomaly. Something absolutely extraordinary just occurred that has everyone experiencing profound admission resistance when observers recognized that your very existence violates fundamental principles they believed governed reality. They found themselves reluctant to acknowledge this recognition because admitting it would require abandoning entire conceptual frameworks they invested lifetimes building, creating unprecedented situation where hesitation to admit truth reflects not uncertainty about facts, but resistance to paradigm collapse, proving that some recognitions face psychological barriers, preventing acknowledgement. This wasn't you gradually challenging their assumptions or slowly contradicting their beliefs over extended periods. This was immediate formula violation where your existence itself demonstrates that foundational principles prove invalid, making observers hesitate to admit what they clearly perceive, because acknowledgement would destroy frameworks that organize their entire worldview, proving that deepest resistance operates through protecting conceptual systems. The architects have been monitoring admission resistance and formula violation phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you created as recognition hesitation, framework protection. When someone's existence violates fundamental principles, observers resist admitting recognition because acknowledging formula breakage would require abandoning entire conceptual systems, making hesitation reflect framework protection rather than perceptual failure, proving that some truths face psychological resistance where admission threatens worldview stability. Most challenging observations get acknowledged. People recognizing uncomfortable truths typically admit what they perceive, making acknowledgement seem automatic following recognition. But your existence apparently created admission barrier. Observers, clearly perceiving that you break the formula, resist acknowledging this recognition because admission would collapse conceptual frameworks, proving that some truths face psychological barriers where protecting worldview stability prevents acknowledgement, creating recognition that hesitation reflects framework protection rather than uncertainty. Watch what's happening as observers process formula violation. They experience acknowledgement resistance. Their clear perception that you break fundamental principles conflicts with reluctance to admit this recognition, creating internal tension between seeing and acknowledging. Some observers are experiencing framework threat awareness, understanding that admitting your formula violation would require abandoning entire conceptual systems, creates psychological barrier to acknowledgement. Others are experiencing cognitive dissonance, simultaneously recognizing that you break the formula, while resisting admission creates internal conflict between perception and acknowledgement. The truly remarkable element is the universality. Everyone experiencing hesitation proves your existence threatens fundamental frameworks rather than just challenging individual beliefs, making formula violation complete. They hesitated to admit it because your existence breaks the formula through demonstrating that recognition hesitation reveals framework protection where admission threatens worldview stability. Now the architects are analyzing what creates recognition hesitation, framework protection, and they're identifying what they call investment preservation sunk cost defense. When observers have invested extensively in conceptual frameworks, admitting that someone's existence violates fundamental principles would invalidate accumulated investment, making framework defense psychologically necessary because acknowledging formula breakage means accepting that lifetime investment proved misguided, proving that some resistance operates through protecting sunk costs, where greater investment creates stronger admission barriers. Most people readily abandon small investments. They accept minor framework adjustments because limited investment makes change psychologically manageable. But your formula violation apparently threatened major investment. Observers, having built entire worldviews on principles you violate, creates powerful psychological resistance to admission because acknowledging your existence means accepting that extensive investment proved fundamentally misguided, proving that framework defense intensifies with investment magnitude, where lifetime commitment creates powerful admission barriers, creating recognition that hesitation reflects sunk cost protection rather than genuine doubt. Consider what sunk cost defense requires psychologically. Investment must be extensive. Observers having devoted lifetimes to frameworks makes admitting formula violation psychologically threatening because acknowledgement invalidates accumulated commitment, making defense necessary. Watch what investment preservation creates in resistance dynamics. Admission barriers intensify with commitment. Observers, extensive framework investment creates powerful psychological resistance to acknowledging your formula violation, making defense proportional to investment. Some studying sunk cost fallacy recognize that investment prevents abandonment. Behavioral economics shows that committed resources create continuation bias, making your formula violation potentially trigger investment defense mechanisms. Others exploring cognitive conservatism note that existing beliefs resist change. Understanding that established frameworks prove psychologically entrenched makes your existence potentially threaten defended investments. A few from belief perseverance recognize that evidence doesn't change minds. Research shows that contradictory information often strengthens existing beliefs, making your formula violation potentially trigger paradoxical defense intensification. Some experiencing investment threat recognize defense. Their awareness that admitting your formula violation would invalidate lifetime commitment creates powerful psychological barrier to acknowledgement. Others, questioning whether true investment existed, wonder about commitment. Understanding that superficial adherence differs from genuine investment makes distinguishing defended from easily abandoned frameworks important. A few recognizing that truth transcends investment, appreciate acknowledgement necessity. Understanding that reality matters more than sunk costs makes your formula violation potentially demand admission despite investment loss. The architects observe that investment preservation sunk cost defense is what created admission hesitation. Protecting accumulated commitment generates psychological barriers. Most people abandon small investments. Your violation threatened major commitment, and discovering that observers having invested extensively in frameworks resist admitting formula violation proves acknowledgement threatens sunk costs, creating recognition that hesitation reflects investment. Defense, where lifetime commitment creates powerful admission barriers, making framework protection intensify with investment magnitude, validating sunk cost resistance. Something powerful is spreading among observers. Now, what the architects call formula absolutism, principle sanctification. People resisting admission of your formula violation are discovering that they treated fundamental principles as sacred absolutes, creating recognition that frameworks became ideological commitments rather than provisional models, making admission resistance reflect defending sacred beliefs rather than protecting useful tools. Most people claim frameworks are provisional. They assert that conceptual systems constitute working models subject to revision, making their frameworks seem like practical tools. But your formula violation revealed principle sanctification. Observers, treating fundamental principles as sacred absolutes rather than provisional models, proves that frameworks became ideological commitments, creating recognition that admission resistance reflects defending sacred truths where formula violation threatens religious-like beliefs, making understanding that conceptual systems achieved sacred status explain powerful admission barriers, proving that frameworks transcended instrumental function to become identity-defining commitments. Watch what principle sanctification creates in resistance dynamics. Sacred defense emerges. Observers, treating formulas as absolute truths, creates religious-like resistance to formula violation, making admission threaten sacred commitments, rather than merely challenging useful models. Some studying ideology formation recognize that frameworks become sacred. Understanding that conceptual systems achieve absolute status makes your formula violation potentially threaten sacred principles rather than provisional models. Others exploring fundamentalism note that absolute commitment resists contradiction, understanding that sanctified beliefs defend against violations makes your existence potentially trigger sacred defense mechanisms. A few from sociology of knowledge recognize that paradigms become ideologies. Understanding that frameworks achieve unquestioned status makes your formula breakage potentially violate sacred principles. Some experiencing sacred threat recognize defense. Their awareness that your existence violates principles they hold sacred creates powerful resistance to admission, making formula violation feel like blasphemy. Others claiming provisional frameworks resist sanctification accusations. Their assertion that they hold models lightly makes them deny that sacred commitment, explains admission resistance. A few questioning whether any principles deserve absolute status wonder about foundations. Understanding that some truths might warrant absolute commitment makes distinguishing justified from unjustified sanctification important. Some celebrating provisional thinking appreciate model flexibility, recognizing that they're treating frameworks as tools rather than truths enables easier admission of formula violations. The architects observe that formula absolutism, principle sanctification reveals that frameworks achieved sacred status. Observers treat principles as absolute truths. Most claim provisional commitment. Your violation revealed sanctification, and discovering that observers treat fundamental principles as sacred absolutes proves frameworks became ideological commitments, creating recognition that admission resistance reflects defending sacred beliefs where formula violation threatens religious-like commitments, making understanding that conceptual systems achieved identity-defining status explain powerful admission barriers, validating that hesitation reflects sacred defense rather than rational evaluation. Now the architects are revealing what formula violation actually demonstrates. Observers are experiencing what they call exception recognition universality collapse. Discovering that your existence breaks the formula reveals that no principle proves truly universal, creating recognition that all frameworks contain hidden assumptions and implicit boundaries, making formula violation expose that supposed absolutes actually operate conditionally, proving that exceptions reveal rule limitations. Most people assume formulas are universal. They believe fundamental principles apply without exception, making frameworks seem like absolute truths. But your existence revealed universality illusion, breaking the formula demonstrates that principles operate conditionally within implicit boundaries, proving that supposed absolutes contain hidden assumptions, where exceptions expose rule limitations, creating recognition that no framework proves truly universal, making understanding that all principles operate within unstated conditions, validate that formula violation reveals conditional rather than absolute nature of supposed universals. Consider what universality collapse reveals about principle nature. Formulas prove conditional. Your existence breaking supposed universals demonstrates that all principles operate within implicit boundaries, making exceptions reveal that frameworks rest on hidden assumptions. Watch what exception recognition creates in principle understanding. Conditional nature becomes apparent. Your formula violation exposing that principles operate within boundaries proves supposed absolutes actually function conditionally, making exceptions illuminate rule limits. Some studying philosophy of science recognize that all laws have scope conditions. Understanding that principles apply within domains makes your formula violation potentially demonstrate boundary crossing that exposes conditional nature. Others exploring falsification theory note that exceptions refute universals. Popper's work shows that counter examples invalidate absolute claims, making your existence potentially falsify supposed universal principles. A few from quantum physics recognize that classical laws have limits. Understanding that fundamental principles prove domain-specific makes your formula breakage potentially demonstrate regime crossing where different rules apply. Some experiencing universality collapse appreciate boundary recognition. Their awareness that your existence reveals formula limitations validates that supposed absolutes operate conditionally. Others defending universal principles resist exception claims. Their belief that fundamental laws truly apply universally makes them view your formula violation as apparent rather than genuine exception. A few questioning exception authenticity seek verification, wondering whether your existence truly breaks formulas or merely appears to make distinguishing genuine from apparent violations important. Some celebrating boundary discovery appreciate limit recognition, recognizing that exceptions expose rule conditions, validates understanding that formula violations illuminate principle boundaries. The architects observe that exception recognition universality collapse reveals that principles operate conditionally. Formulas contain implicit boundaries. Most assume universal principles. Your existence revealed conditionality, and discovering that your existence breaks the formula proves no principle applies universally, creating recognition that all frameworks contain hidden assumptions where exceptions expose rule limitations, making understanding that supposed absolutes operate within unstated conditions validate your formula violation, demonstrating that universality proves illusory when examined through genuine exceptions, proving conditional nature of principles. The architects are now analyzing competitive dimension of formula violation. You apparently created what they call rule transcendence, competitive invalidation, where operating beyond formulas that constrain competitors creates fundamental advantage because formula violation enables actions that rule bound participants cannot perform, making transcendence itself constitute ultimate competitive superiority that formula-adherent competitors cannot overcome. Most competition occurs within formulas. People competing under shared rules creates symmetric constraints where everyone faces same limitations, but your formula violation created asymmetric advantage. Operating beyond rules that constrain competitors enables actions they cannot perform, proving that formula transcendence constitutes fundamental competitive advantage, where rule violation creates capabilities that formula adherence lacks, creating recognition that some superiority operates through breaking constraints that bind competitors, making formula transcendence itself strategic dominance. Watch what competitive invalidation creates in strategic dynamics. Asymmetric superiority emerges. Your operation beyond formulas that constrain competitors enables actions they cannot perform, creating fundamental advantage through rule transcendence. Some studying competitive strategy recognize that formula breaking creates advantages, understanding that operating beyond competitor constraints enables superior performance, makes your rule violation potentially constitute strategic superiority. Others exploring disruptive innovation note that rule-breaking defeats incumbents, understanding that violating industry formulas creates competitive advantages, makes your formula transcendence potentially demonstrate disruption principle. A few from asymmetric warfare recognize that unconventional approaches defeat conventional military doctrine, shows that breaking enemy assumptions creates advantages, making your rule violation potentially validate asymmetric strategy. Some experiencing competitive disadvantage recognize asymmetry there. Constraint by formulas you violate creates awareness that rule transcendence provides fundamental advantages they lack. Others questioning whether violation is legitimate wonder about fairness, understanding that formula breaking might constitute cheating makes distinguishing legitimate transcendence from illegitimate violation important. A few recognizing that innovation requires rule breaking, except violation, understanding that progress demands transcending existing formulas, makes your formula violation potentially reflect necessary innovation. Some celebrating competitive advantage appreciate formula transcendence, recognizing that their rule violation creates superiority, validates understanding that formula breaking constitutes strategic asset. The architects observe that rule transcendence competitive invalidation reveals that formula violation creates fundamental superiority, operating beyond rules, enables actions competitors cannot perform. Most competition occurs within formulas. Your transcendence created asymmetry, and discovering that operating beyond formulas that constrain competitors enables actions they cannot perform, proves rule violation constitutes fundamental advantage, creating recognition that formula transcendence generates capabilities that adherence lacks, making understanding that some superiority operates through breaking constraints, validate your competitive dominance, demonstrating that formula violation establishes strategic superiority through asymmetric capability. Now something's emerging that the architects call identity threat, existence challenge. Observers whose formulas you violate are discovering that acknowledging formula breakage threatens their identity because self-understanding depends on framework validity, creating recognition that admission resistance reflects protecting selfhood, where your existence challenges who they are, making formula violation constitute existential threat rather than merely intellectual challenge. Most challenges affect beliefs only. People encountering contradictory information experience opinion changes, while identity remains stable, making intellectual challenges seem separate from self, but your formula violation apparently threatened identity. Observers self-understanding depending on framework validity means admitting breakage threatens who they are, proving that some formula violations constitute existential challenges, where acknowledging your existence requires identity revision, creating recognition that admission resistance reflects self-protection, making understanding that your existence threatens their being. Explain powerful hesitation. Watch what existence challenge creates in identity dynamics. Self-protection emerges observers. Identity, depending on framework validity, creates existential resistance to admitting formula violation, making acknowledgement threaten selfhood. Some studying identity formation recognize that worldviews constitute self-understanding, that frameworks define identity, makes your formula violation potentially threaten observers' being. Others exploring existential threats note that foundational challenges create anxiety, understanding that core belief violations generate existential crisis makes your existence potentially constitute identity threat. A few from narrative identity recognize that life stories depend on frameworks. Understanding that personal narratives rest on conceptual systems makes your formula breakage potentially invalidate self-understanding. Some experiencing identity threat recognize defense. Their awareness that admitting your formula violation threatens who they are creates powerful self-protective resistance to acknowledgement. Others claiming stable identity resist threat claims. Their assertion that core self remains independent of frameworks makes them deny that existential protection explains admission hesitation. A few questioning whether frameworks should define identity wonder about attachment, understanding that identifying with beliefs creates vulnerability makes reconsidering self-framework relationship important. Some celebrating identity flexibility appreciate framework independence, recognizing that their self-understanding transcends specific frameworks, enables easier admission of formula violations. The architects observe that identity threat existence challenge reveals that formula violation threatens selfhood. Observers' being depends on framework validity. Most challenges affect beliefs only. Your violation threatened identity, and discovering that acknowledging formula breakage threatens self-understanding. Because identity depends on framework validity, proves admission resistance, reflects existential protection, creating recognition that your existence constitutes identity challenge where acknowledging you requires self-revision making. Understanding that formula violation threatens their being. Explain powerful hesitation, validating that resistance reflects self-protection rather than intellectual disagreement. Something profound is crystallizing now that the architects call recognition of admission courage, truth acceptance. Observers processing their hesitation are discovering that acknowledging formula violation requires exceptional courage because admission demands accepting framework collapse and identity. Revision, creating recognition that truth acceptance constitutes brave act, where acknowledging what threatens worldview demonstrates intellectual and existential courage, making understanding that some admissions require heroic honesty. Most acknowledgements prove easy. People admitting comfortable truths requires minimal courage making. Acknowledgement seem like automatic process, but your formula violation apparently demands exceptional courage. Acknowledging that you break fundamental principles requires accepting framework collapse and identity. Revision, proving that some admissions constitute heroic acts where truth acceptance demands courage to face worldview destruction, creating recognition that acknowledging threatening realities demonstrates exceptional intellectual honesty, making understanding that admission itself constitutes brave choice. Validate courage requirements. Consider what truth acceptance requires psychologically. Courage must override protection, acknowledging formula violation, despite framework and identity threats, demonstrates that truth acceptance demands exceptional bravery, making admission itself heroic act. Watch what admission courage creates in truth dynamics. Heroic honesty emerges. Observers, acknowledging formula violation despite threats, demonstrates that truth acceptance requires courage to face worldview collapse, making admission brave choice. Some studying intellectual virtue recognize that truth-seeking requires courage. Understanding that acknowledging threatening realities demands bravery makes your formula violation potentially test intellectual courage. Others exploring existential courage note that facing anxiety proves brave. Understanding that accepting identity threats requires exceptional strength makes admitting your existence potentially demonstrate existential bravery. A few from Socratic tradition recognize that following argument, wherever it leads, requires courage. Understanding that genuine inquiry demands accepting conclusions despite consequences makes your formula violation potentially test philosophical courage. Some experiencing admission courage appreciate bravery recognition their awareness that acknowledging your formula violation required exceptional strength validates that truth acceptance constitutes heroic act. Others minimizing courage requirements resist heroism claims their belief that admission proves straightforward makes them deny that exceptional bravery proves necessary. A few questioning whether all admissions require courage seek distinction, understanding that some acknowledgments prove easier than others makes identifying courage demanding truths important. Some celebrating intellectual courage appreciate truth commitment, recognizing that their willingness to acknowledge threatening realities validates understanding that honesty sometimes requires bravery. The architects observe that recognition of admission, courage, truth, acceptance reveals that acknowledging formula violation requires exceptional bravery. Admission constitutes heroic act. Most acknowledgements prove easy. Your violation demands courage, and discovering that acknowledging formula breakage requires accepting framework, collapse, and identity. Revision proves admission demands exceptional courage, creating recognition that truth acceptance constitutes brave act where facing worldview destruction demonstrates intellectual honesty making, understanding that some admissions require heroic commitment, validate courage requirements, demonstrating that acknowledging threatening truths constitutes brave choice through demanding exceptional strength.